Operation Safety Net is now underway in Minnesota. That was Colonel Matt Langer from the Minnesota State Police there. He says it is their goal to ensure that things don't get out of control. As we get closer to former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin's trial, he is due in court next Monday. Concrete barriers, chain link fencing, and barbed wire have been put up around the Hennepin County Government Center. Thousands of National Guard troops and police officers will be present during the trial. Derek Chauvin is charged with manslaughter and second-degree murder in the death of George Floyd. And joining us now to talk about the security situation at the Hennepin County Government Complex is Newsmax contributor and former Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clarke. Great to see you, Sheriff Clarke.
Thank you.
You know, we're watching this hearing about the security failures on Capitol Hill on January 6th. We see razor wire and fencing up around that Capitol, and we see people complaining, including Keith Ellison's son on the Minneapolis City Council, complaining about too much security now. Based on what we saw over the summer, what choice do they have?
They don't have any choice. It's a pick your poison situation. Look, I've been in charge of these types of operations, and what you want to do, you want to make sure you have enough in reserve to quickly respond should things roll out of hand. It's important to communicate with the public what you're doing as a law enforcement executive, but there's no need to be apologetic. And I heard a little bit of that in that clip there. Err on the side of caution. And then the people who are complaining about it are the same ones who will be complaining about it should things get out of hand and law enforcement not be able to quickly respond to it.
You know, this is part and parcel of their effort to defund the police, but we already see the backlash for that. But these city council members in Minnesota don't seem to care about the safety of their constituents.
Of course they don't care, and they're not responsible for it either. Look, this is nothing more than propaganda on the part of Ellison's son there with what's going on in Minneapolis. And as you indicated, John, we've seen the devastation. We've seen what can quickly happen when these things get out of hand. This is going to be an emotionally charged trial. People are going to be waiting. Who knows what the outcome will be? I'll tell you what, right now, if there's as much as a hung jury, these cop haters will take to the street and riot and do the sort of things that they did prior to this trial beginning. So they have to be prepared. I think it's smart on the part of law enforcement to be prepared. And you know what? You have to just kind of push the criticism aside and do what's in the best interest of public safety.
You know, it's interesting, Sheriff Clarke, there was recently a Harvard-Harris poll that was conducted, and they asked people what was more concerning to them, the violence in American cities this past summer or the riots at the Capitol on January 6th. And 55% of the people who responded said they were more concerned about the violence that they saw in America's cities over the summer compared to just 45% about the riot on January 6th. But, you know, we don't get that same kind of vibe from Christopher Wray during these hearings. He seems to only be so concerned, and a lot of folks, including Merrick Garland as well, they're only concerned about what happened at the Capitol.
I'm sorry. You know, Christopher Wray, he's been an embarrassment thus far, I believe, in terms of leading that organization. There's been a lot of secrecy surrounding this, the response from law enforcement at the Capitol on January 6th. That's very unfortunate. They need to be open. They get away with this. Local law enforcement never gets away with this kind of secrecy. And anytime there's a shroud of secrecy, people start thinking that there's a cover-up here. He needs to be as open as the public demands that local law enforcement officers are in these situations. I'm surprised it's only 55%. I'm surprised it's not higher. Look, January 6th, the breach of the Capitol, that was a one-day incident. The violence that goes on in American cities happens 365 days a year, and that's why I'm surprised only 55% think that the violence in American cities is worse than the January 6th incident.
Yeah, you know, you might be less surprised with this response here. The same poll asked people if they think Antifa is a domestic terror group. 71% said yes, just 29% said no. Obviously not a myth to a lot of America out there. We want to talk a little bit more about Christopher Wray because he refused yesterday to give us any clear indication on what actually happened with Officer Brian Sitnick. We saw the reports from the New York Times. Initially, it was described by the New York Times and others that Sitnick was bludgeoned in the head with a fire extinguisher. We know that is not true. But why won't the FBI director give us a clear answer on what actually happened to that officer?
The same reason I didn't give any clear answers with what happened in the Russia collusion thing, because they get away with it and nobody's demanding. And I would blame this then on the GOP and the Congress, who should issue subpoenas. They should force people to testify or claim the fifth if they want to, but they won't do that. Look, when you get a poll that says 71% of anything, that's a lot, and that needs to be paid attention to. But, as far as the release of this autopsy report, look, I've investigated this stuff. I've talked to medical examiners about the reports, a coroner or medical examiner's report. I've read these things. There is nothing in an autopsy that's going to compromise the investigation. That's just a catch-all that the FBI uses to scare people away because nobody wants to compromise the investigation. This will not compromise anything to release that. We need justice for Ashley Babbitt.
That's a good point. It reminds me a lot of trying to work with the FBI as a reporter. You ask them, they could be standing in front of an explosion. You ask them, what happened here? It looks like an explosion. Well, we can't comment on an ongoing investigation. Sometimes we need the obvious, and we need the FBI to be more upfront with us. Lastly, Sheriff Clarke, about a minute left here. I don't want to let this go. The Fraternal Order of Police, America's largest police union, just issued these new stats. The violence against the brave men and women of law enforcement continues. We're just 2 months now into 2021. Look at these numbers. 45 officers shot, 11 officers killed by gunfire, 13 officers shot in 10 separate ambush attacks. Yet a lot of people don't support the police, Sheriff Clarke.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we don't have a person in the White House like we had in President Trump, who was full-throated about his support for law enforcement. Look, the bloodletting continues in this war on cops. The last couple of years has seen increases in law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty. We've seen increases in suicides by law enforcement officers because of the pressures that they're under. But all we get is the shoulder shrug from many in Congress, and we get a shoulder shrug from everybody in the liberal media.
Yeah, well, you might expect to get a little help from Kamala Harris, considering she's a former cop, but she must have forgot about those days. Sheriff Clarke, great to see you. We always appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you, John.
Hi, Emma Reckenberg here. If you like this video, there's a whole lot more to see on Newsmax TV. You can watch for free right here on our YouTube live stream and be the first one here each time our experts break down real news. Just hit that subscribe button, ring the bell icon, and stay with us on America's fastest growing cable news channel, Newsmax TV.